Plant-based diets, and I am maybe exhibit A of all of that. Believe it or not, I have been a vegan, plant-based vegan, since day one. I was born in 1951. My parents had a number of health problems at the time, and somehow, you know, my late great father has a great saying that, sadly, most people don't worry about their health until after they've lost it. That was the case with my parents. They didn't worry about their health until my father collapsed with polio, when my brother was 3 years old and I was just born. A little prior to that, my mother had some health problems. My brother had bronchial asthma, and I was born this beautiful 8 pounds, 5 ounce kid, beautiful health, everything else. And my mother, back in 1951, facing a lot of pressure from the family about wanting to breastfeed and not give their kid cow's milk, and God forbid not give them immunizations. Got a lot of pressure from the family, and her milk spoiled. She was trying to breastfeed me, and I developed something called projectile vomiting, which is where you can't keep any food down. So this 8 pound, 5 ounce kid, 6 months later was 6 pounds, 5 ounces. It was really a train wreck. And fortunately, my father, who worked in the furniture business at the time, knew a guy by the name of Ben Blumenthal, who ran the furniture store that he worked for, was a vegetarian, and believed in that there was a better way to live with exercise and health and juices and all that, and took him to a lecture in Cleveland that was given by Dr. Herbert Shelton, and another guy by the name of Dr. Gerald Benish, and another guy by the name of Dr. Robert Gross, 3 of the founders of an organization called the American Natural Hygiene Society, now called the National Health Association, that I want to talk to you about later tonight. And I came under the care particularly of Dr. Benish, who somehow, with his confidence and his guidance, nursed me back to health. My parents became vegetarians, and because I was in such probably an extreme health situation, they believed and they were recommended that a raw food, Sheltonian diet was the best way for me to grow up. So believe it or not, I was raised in 1951, grew up on a raw food, whole food, plant-based diet, just raw fruits and vegetables, nuts and dates. No cheese, no bread, no ice cream, no pizza. Never crossed my lips for all of those years. And I grew up, it was a very different time to be a vegetarian, let alone a raw foodist. If you think back, there were no such thing as salad bars. If you think back, grocery stores, even the produce department, was a little cooler, usually in the back. Not like today, where now it's the first thing you get when you come in the store. If you went out, as I went on, my late great father was an active member of an organization called the National Nutritional Foods Association, which is the trade association for the health food industry. And there was a time he would go to their national conventions because he became a national officer and later president of that organization. There was an airline strike in 1963, and I used to go with my father to these conventions. Well, this particular convention was in Los Angeles. We lived in Youngstown, Ohio, where my father was determined to go. So how did we go? By Greyhound bus from Youngstown, Ohio to Los Angeles, California. Took 4 days on a Greyhound bus. And the point of the story is not the interesting travel experiences of going on a Greyhound bus across the country. But if those of you who are old enough to remember that when you traveled by Greyhound bus, their cafeterias were something called post houses. And they had these little places where it was almost like an automat. They had these counters and you could buy a piece of cake, you could buy a piece of ice cream. Well, what was a salad in 1958 to 1963? Salad was a little saucer with a wedge of iceberg lettuce, maybe a sliver of carrot and a slice of tomato. That was a salad. But if any of you knew Max Huberman, and Jeff does, Frank does, Max Huberman was not to be denied for his son. So my father, at the post houses, would go into the kitchen, come out with a head of lettuce, a whole tomato, the carrots, and that's what he had for his son. But, you know, growing up in those days was going to elementary school and being the only kid like that. You know, people always say, how did you do that? You must have tremendous willpower. You must have great willpower to be able to do that and be so non-conforming. But I like to say, as I look back, I attribute it to two reasons that I was able to adhere to this great diet. One, and I think the most important one, is I had an incredibly loving family that loved me to no end and would do anything for the world. We were a very close family, and if my parents told me this was the right thing to do, I trusted them, loved them unequivocally as they did me. So I had their support and their love and all that. The other is, and maybe the more accurate one, is that taste is a learned behavior, at least for many of us, I think for most of us probably. So when you've never tasted potato chips and bread and peanut butter sandwiches and things like that, it's not a matter of willpower. It's not what I had no interest in it. And it does, as I look back on it, I mean, it does seem kind of remarkable that everybody's eating all these other things around me and you know, nice chocolate chip cookies and things like that. And I didn't. I just enjoyed my salad every day. And I enjoyed my lunch with my bag of cashews and apples and raisins. And fortunately, I guess one other thing I would say, my parents were also pioneers in the health food store business. They had a health food store, they opened in 1958, long before Whole Foods. And they were one of the first health food stores in the country to retail organically grown foods. This was before standards of organic produce, but there were these maverick farmers all over the country. And my parents would find them and would get the best apples. Real real vine-ripened pineapples from right here in Florida. This guy by the name of Lee McComb. There was a mango grower in Florida here that had the best Broderson blue oranges. My parents found these people. So I had the best cashews, the best pineapples, the best mangoes. I think that helped too. And maybe just, I don't know, maybe I've just always been a very determined guy and believed that you do what you believe in. As I got older, of course, I grew up in this organization called the National Health Association, where I met other families raising kids like me, so I wasn't so much of an isolated person. But as I got older and got involved, I also came on my own, not just because this is the only thing I know, but I grew up thinking, you know, there really is wisdom to this. That my parents, maybe not even fully understanding what they were doing back when, were way ahead of their time. They were really on to something. They really did understand that the food you eat, the water you drink, the air you breathe, that my father used to always talk about, that is really the key to your health. And that this isn't really such a mystery and so complicated to maintain good health and to recover good health when you do. My parents understood that. They were way ahead of their time, and they instilled that in me. And then, add to it, I had the good fortune of growing up with people like Dr. Sabatino, Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, people that are today the leaders of this whole food plant-based movement. And what they did is that they validated so much of what people that they studied under, what they just kind of knew empirically, they were able to validate from their own practice. And now we know, through Forks Over Knives, through the work that T. Colin Campbell has done, and Caldwell Esselstyn has done, and Joel Furman and Alan Goldhammer is doing in California. My parents were right a long time ago. They were way ahead of their time. And that's something of which I'm real proud of. So I just got to add one more footnote about this raw food, vegan, vegetarian from day one. I did lose my virginity as to raw foods. I went on a honeymoon when I was married in 1982. Went on a honeymoon to Greece and to Rome. And so the way I always traveled is that I always had my bag of apples and cashews and whatever everybody else did, that's what I did. Well, this one particular day in Rome, we had a tour from Rome to Naples to Sorrento to the Isle of Capri and then back. It was a very long day. We started at like 6 o'clock in the morning, got back about 8 o'clock at night. I ran out of apples. I ran out of cashews. And when they stopped for dinner at this Italian restaurant, they had baked potatoes. They had cooked green beans, maybe a little oil on it at the time, but I couldn't eat that because I didn't eat that. And I thought to myself, going around Frank and Dr. Goldhammer and all the other leaders of our movement, you know, they all thought there's certainly a great value to eating fresh, live foods, but nobody was saying you had to be a raw foods. I did it because this is what I always did, and certainly maintained abundant health from it, but I never believed that it was necessary to do that to maintain my health. So I decided, after that very hungry night, that when I came back to Youngstown, Ohio, after that honeymoon, I was going to try a baked potato. I was going to try some wild brown rice that my mother made so well with mushrooms and celery and all this kind of stuff. And I had an epiphany that night. This is would only apply to somebody growing up like me. One of the reasons that I was always a raw foodist for as many years as I did is I couldn't imagine putting something scalding hot in my mouth. I then, in my wisdom, probably my law school education, came to realize one day you don't have to put it in your mouth scalding hot. You can let it cool a little bit. So I did. And I liked it. And it was pretty good. I thought I would gain 20 pounds out of it. Didn't happen. To this day, that was 30 some years later, I enjoy baked potatoes. I enjoy an avocado sandwich from time to time. I enjoy good soups, but I still eat very cleanly. My vegan is what Dr. Alan Goldhammer calls vegan SOS, what I consider the gold standard of a vegan diet. It's your whole food, plant-based foods prepared without added oil, salt, and sugar, because none of them, they all contribute to all kinds of problems. So I eat pretty cleanly to this day. But it's a little more enjoyable, a little broadly. And I guess here I am, 66 years old. I've enjoyed pretty abundant health. I was never immunized, and I'm pleased to report that I haven't suffered any of the conditions that we're all supposed to get for not being immunized. Although I suppose I had the mumps once, but you do get over those things. I've had one cavity in my career a couple of years ago, so I guess I'm doing okay that way. I guess I think my own personal philosophy, I hear a lot of people in the health movement talk about perfect health. That you do this, you're never going to have a cold, you're never going to get sick, you're never going to get it. And you know what I think? I don't agree with that. I don't believe that. I believe that what we are doing, when you follow a whole food, plant-based diet, and you're a vegan SOS, you're doing the very best you can. You're going to hedge your bets. We're all prisoners of our heredity to some degree, although I think we've learned from science you can turn off a lot of those genes. Frank's written a lot about that. But we can do the best we can. We all have our heredity. We all have the environment. We all have the stresses of life in which we live. Now sometimes people write too much, I think, in this whole food plant-based business. It's all about the food. And it's not all about the food, in my opinion. And I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, so I'm not here. I'm just telling you what I think, and my observation from having been around some of the brightest minds in this business. There really is more to life than just what you eat. But clearly, eating plays a big role, plays a big part. And again, I think that these are remarkable times in which we live right now. Who would have thought that there'd be a documentary like Forks Over Knives that would have the impact that it did and get people thinking about this? And so many of the documentaries they followed. And how many of you have seen the latest documentary out called What the Health on Netflix? If you haven't, see it. It's remarkable. Prominently features Dr. Alan Goldhammer, one of the premier guys in the NHA, Michael Clapper, and a number of others. It's just a great documentary. But the fact that through the internet and the availability of Netflix and cable, that this information is more available than it's ever been before. And I think that in my own life, I think I eat a very, very clean diet, but I'm always trying to do better. I think we should always try to do better every day. Try to get a little more rest. Try to eat a little more cleanly. Try to exercise a little bit more. Those are all things that you do. So just a little bit more about me, and then I want to talk to you about the National Health Association. As I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. The first 10 of those, I was a general practice lawyer, did you name it, from murder cases to divorces to everything else. My next 10 years, I became a part-time magistrate of our juvenile court, working with dependent, neglected, abused children. Found that really, really rewarding. And for the last 20 years, for 20 years after that, I've been the chief magistrate judge of the Mahoney County Domestic Relations Court here in South Ohio. So I was a family court judge who rearranged people's lives for every day. And one of these days, I'm going to write a great book about the things that I see and that people do in and what people do to each other in their very lives. And I often remember when Bill Clinton's saga was going on, and they were indicting Bill Clinton for lying under oath about his sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I often said that if we put everybody in jail who lied under oath about sex in domestic relations court, we wouldn't have enough jails for them. It's just unbelievable. So I've had a very rewarding career. I've really enjoyed what I've done. Made a good buck doing it. But I had the good fortune of having some wonderful opportunities to retire on June 30th of this year. And I've retired to do two things. One is that I'm the administrator of an organization called the Ohio Association of Magistrates that provides continuing legal education in Ohio for magistrates like myself. When I do that, I really love that. But the real love of my life is the National Health Association. And it's an organization that's been around since 1948. This year will be celebrating its 70th anniversary. It is the oldest organization in the country, probably in the world, promoting the benefits of a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle. We've been doing that since 1948. They've held annual health conferences with some of the top voices in the whole food, plant-based movement anywhere. And we produce a magazine called Health Science. And Health Science is actually an interesting publication that I created back in 1978 to bring together and to be an organ for the best voices on health and plant-based living that you can find. And in 2014, the executive director of our organization retired. She was living in Tampa, Florida, right down here in Florida. She retired. And since I knew I was nearing retirement, I thought, well, this is what I've done my whole life, so I'll do this. So I took over the NHA on a voluntary basis, which I've done since 2014, and published this magazine. And you'll see, I hope that I can convince you to take a look at it before you leave. I brought a bunch of extra copies here. It is, I think, the finest health publication in America. Not because I create it, because I'm just really the editor. It's the people that I bring together to write for it, the interview. It's 40 pages long. It's as high a quality as I think you will find of any publication you'll see. And you know what? No advertising. Go into a health food store and pick up Better Nutrition or any of these magazines, and what are they? They're just a sales pitch for the latest formula, potion, pill, detox program, whatever it is. Not health science. This is only about health. My principal role in this interview is with Joel Kahn. How many know Joel Kahn? He's kind of an emerging guy on the scene. He's a cardiologist from Detroit, who's just a brilliant, brilliant guy. I interviewed in the upcoming issue that's going to press in about a week, Dr. Neil Bernard. Dr. Neil Bernard, Center for Physicians Committee for Responsible Nutrition. It's tremendous. And every one of these magazines has an interview with somebody like that. I interviewed Frank just a couple of years ago in this publication. So there's a feature interview. Every magazine has 2 or 3 pages. What would a health magazine be without recipes? But our recipes are truly the vegan SOS from the top vegan SOS chefs, Kathy Fisher, Chef AJ, Katie May. Those are the recipes you will see here. They are easy to make, healthful. And you know what the cost of this is? $35 a year for a quarterly publication. Not just because I produce it, the magazine itself costs more than the $35 that it sells for, that we charge in a membership. But what you get when you get Health Science, people donate to the NHA that allows us to do that. They support us. They donate disproportionately because they like to see the great work that we do. So we've been able to put this out for $35 a year. You get Health Science Magazine. In addition, we have a world-class website called healthscience.org. And on the website, when you become a member and you register online, you can go up over 15 years of back issues of these magazines for free. And ebooks of the classics of the natural hygiene. How many of you have ever heard of Fasting Can Save Your Life by Herbert Shell? Free, Health for the Millions. You don't have to be sick. Those books are all free. Free downloads when you're a member of the National Health Association. So again, I'm real proud of it. This is the summer 2017 issue that I brought. I have about 20 or 30 of them here. If you join tonight, you take one home. I can do it by credit card, take a check, take cash. And I came down here at no cost to Jeff. I just said, you know what, help me support the NHA, and that's the reward that I'll get, because this is really what's become my mission in life. It's what I've done. I feel really privileged at this point in my retirement to not only have my health, but to be able to do work. My father, my late great father, had a favorite saying that is on his tombstone that he always recited. He said, quoted the Boston educator Horace Mann, who's the father of public education in America. And his quote was, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victories for humanity." So that's kind of what he instilled in his son, and that's what I do, and I'm real privileged that I'm able to do it. So I hope that you'll consider doing that. If anybody knew my father, my late great father, he really was one of the great Toastmasters that anybody ever said. And I couldn't leave here without sharing one of his stories. It was actually about a guy that came to see Frank Sabatino. It was an 80-year-old guy who came to see Frank. And he's an 80-year-old guy, and he says, you know, I'm an 80-year-old guy, and I'm in wonderful health, and I don't believe in doctors like you. I don't believe in them. But my kids are bugging me. They're convinced that I'm 80 years old. I got to get checked because I got to have something wrong with me. So please put me through a battery of tests so I can shut them up. So Frank says, sure. So he puts him through a whole battery of tests. Frank comes out about an hour later with his clipboard, and he's looking over it and he says, you know, I got to take my hat off to you. You're in remarkable shape. He says, tell me, how old was your father when he died? And Frank says, how old was your father when he died? And the 80-year-old guy looks at Frank and he says, I don't recall saying my father had died. And Frank said, really? Well, how old was your father? And the 80-year-old guy says, he's 100. Frank said, that's amazing. He says, well, tell me, how old was your grandfather when he died? And the 80-year-old guy looks at him and he says, I don't recall saying my grandfather had died. And Frank's eyes almost came out of his head. He said, well, my God. He says, well, how old was your grandfather? And Frank said, oh, and the 80-year-old guy says, he's 120. Frank said, he's 120? That's amazing. He says, well, tell me, how's the old guy doing? And the 80-year-old guy says, he's doing rather well. In fact, he plans on getting married next week. And Frank says, he's 120? Why would he want to get married at 120? And the 80-year-old guy looks at him and he says, I don't recall saying he wanted to get married. So again, one other thing about the NHA, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Yeah, one other thing about the NHA is that we have a health conference that we are having next year in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Cleveland Airport Marriott, where it is the most inexpensive health conference you could go to with all of your meals included, and the best meals you will ever have, with the largest number of speakers, including Frank Sabatino, Alan Goldhammer, Joel Kahn, Joel Furman, Stefan Esser, who's also here from Florida. All of those folks for an early bird rate of $475. Your room is only $89 that we negotiated with this thing. Right? So I hope you'll really consider that. Again, the website is healthscience.org, where you'll be able to register for the conference. And again, I would love each of you to take home one of these magazines tonight. I hope you'll consider joining the NHA. And it's a great organization. And again, I don't think when you look at this magazine, Jeffrey's a life member of the NHA, so Jeffrey's a hero living testament. Frank's been a member for, well, we grew up together. So there you go. So again, I appreciate the opportunity of being here. I'll be over here at the table if you want to pick up a copy of Health Science Magazine. It's really a pleasure meeting all of you down here. Thanks very much.